What's up, guys? Back again already with my next part of my death metal CD collection. So this is going to be episode 3 in this installment. Today we're going to be going over the band that ends the A's and then going to the beginning of the C's. So the B's is definitely one of my smallest sections. If I had to guess, C, D is probably the two biggest, but it's not a surprise. But first, wait, what we are listening to, if you can hear it. Gendard with Ned's Kinging. I'm sure I butchered that, but they're definitely one of the better Trondheim black metal bands going right now. So if you like stuff like Celestial Bloodshed, One Tail, One Head, Hordes, definitely a awesome band from that scene. And this is their debut album from 2016. My favorite is their second most recent, but all the stuff is great. So yep, check it out. Definitely one of the best current Norwegian bands going. First up, I got a little box set for you. This is Avulsed, and this is Vomiting Corpses, the 90s Regurgitations. This is put out through Dissonant Productions, which I'm kind of surprised it's not an Extreme Music record releases, but if you know Avulsed, I would say they're most famous for having Dave Rodden, who owned a bunch of like well-known record labels back in the day, so it's cool. So it's like a little clamshell thing, so I'll show you what it comes with. So here's their debut album. I still think this is easily their best material. This is Eminence in... how's this one called? Eminence and Pertinence. So this is 1996, I believe is when this one came out. These are pretty bare bones basic. It's not really much to show, but yep. Definitely their best album. If you don't know, Avulsed, they're from Spain, kind of like Cannibal Corpse-y, early vomitory-ish, I guess, but not as fast as vomitory gets. And then Cybergore. This record kind of sucks, but it's not awful, just I don't know what happened, just kind of a weird album for them, but anyway. And then another one of my favorites, let's do this. I don't want to get snelled. So this is Stab Wound Intercourse, which you can imagine what the artwork looks like, and then the back. Simple CD. So yep, that's Stab Wound Intercourse. And then we have this EP, I think. Yeah, this is an EP and then some live songs. Cool cover. I like their logo too. I know they're on Extreme Music nowadays because that's the label that Dave Rodden currently is running, so it makes sense. But here's the booklet. I know there wasn't much to show this box. It's pretty bare bones basic, but whatever. At least I showed you a little bit. Yeah, man, that's all I have from Avulsed. I'll get some more eventually, but it's not exactly a high priority, but it's one of those things, if I saw some more in the record store, I would buy it, but I'm not going to really go online to look out for more. But anyway, there's Avulsed. So if you just want to get into them, this is a decent box set together. It's pretty cheap too, so yep. Avulsed, Vomiting Corpses, the 90s Regurgitation. Check that out. Alright, next up we got a New York early 90s death metal classic. This is Baphomet with The Dead Shall Inherit. So this is their debut full length from 1991, I believe. 91, 92, something around there. Pretty basic insert, that's all it comes with. No lyrics or anything, but oh well. Definitely one of the heaviest albums from the New York scene. They definitely have their own unique sound compared to the rest. I mean, they're specifically like New York sounding, but I would argue they sound closer to like Midwest than New York. They don't have the technicality of like immolation or suffocation. They're definitely in the more like morgue or mortar scald territory, where they're more like mid-paced and chunky than like super technical and crazy like suffocation. But yep. This is a Peaceville reissue. Yep, 1992. Okay, so I was kind of close. This is a 2006 Peaceville reissue. But yep, I'm sure if you know your early 90s death metal, this is definitely a classic. There you go. Baphomet, The Dead Shall Inherit. Awesome album. Yeah, I have 3 albums by a band I'm not a huge fan of, but I do like their early material enough. So I have 3 albums by Benediction. So we have, I always forget which one came first. I think this is the debut, Subconscious Terror. So, if you don't know Benediction, they are a long-going UK death metal band. But to me, I've always kind of thought of them as like Bull Thrower Jr., which isn't an insult, but honestly, a lot of UK death metal bands, I'm like, should I be listening to this or Bull Thrower most of the time? It's usually Bull Thrower, but oh well. There's a very distinctive UK style. Though I would argue Early Cancer doesn't really have that style, but you know what I mean. Yeah, this is the only one that has Barney Greenway from Napalm Death on vocals, which is cool. So, and then obviously he joined Napalm after this album. Well, he was already in Napalm. I don't remember because I know how many Eruption was his first, and I don't remember which album came first, this or that. But yep. I don't have the next one. What is it? The Grand Leveler? Is that the follow-up? I don't own that one, but we have my personal favorite, Transcend the Rubicon. I would say, widely regarded as their best record, and I do agree. And these are both Back on Black reissues, if I did not mention that. Let's pull up the booklet. Cool painting. Obviously, that's done by Dan Seagrave, which you can tell right away just by the color palette and the design of the statues. It's one of his artworks. Which I should probably do a Dan Seagrave artwork video eventually. That'd be pretty sweet, because I love his paintings. Not as much as Necrolord, but oh well. No one can beat that guy. And this is like 93, I believe, is when this came out. 92, 93, something around there. Is it? Nope, 93. Okay, I was right. This is a 2022 Back on Black reissue. Except Transcend the Rubicon, definitely the best album in my opinion. And then fast forwarding a bunch, honestly, most of the albums after Transcend the Rubicon I've never heard, but I'll get to them eventually, but it's not a high priority. And then we have this one. I remember when this came out in 2020, everybody and their mother was talking about it, so I just blind bought it based on the praise, and honestly, I don't know what album you guys are hearing. I think this is super generic, every song pretty much sounds the same, so yeah, I guess I kind of fell for that trap, but oh well. Not bad, just kind of plodding and honestly kind of boring, but not sure why I got all the hype, maybe because it was the first album in a while, so oh well. Came out on Nuclear Blast. They have a follow-up to this. I haven't heard it, and I honestly don't care based on this one, but oh well. Not bad, just kind of a generic album. So that's Benediction. Definitely not one of my favorite death metal bands, but they're still decent from time to time. Alright, let's go to France. I have 2 albums from Benighted. So I forget which ones of these comes first, but anyway, we have... Let me see. Okay, this is 2020, so this is 2014, so this one came first. So this is Cannibal Sublime. Definitely my favorite album by them. If you don't know Benighted, they are a technical death metal band, I guess is what you can call them. Like technical death mixed with a little bit of grind. The band I would compare them to is Aborted, which is definitely, I would say, a perfect comparison, because it's like technical death mixed with a little bit of grind. Apparently the early material, they were more black metal leaning, but I've not heard that stuff, so I don't know if that's true or not. Whatever, and here's the CD. This is a 2 CD version. On CD2 it has live at some festival they did in France in 2014, which is pretty cool. Cannibal Sublime, my favorite album by them. And then we have, I believe, 2 albums later, maybe. This is Obscene Repressed. Not a very good album title, and that artwork's not very pleasant either, but anyway. This is put out through Season of Mist in 2020. here's, let me pull out the insert, I mean, not the insert, but the tray code booklet, I mean. Yeah, that's all I've got for Benighted. I've heard a good chunk of their catalog online, but like I said, there's so many bands, and some things you prioritize buying more, and some things you don't. So that's the way it happens sometimes. So there you go. Benighted. Alrighty, so let's go to one of my, I believe these guys were my entryway to Swedish death metal, not when they first came on the scene, obviously, because I would have been like a year old, so that didn't happen. But anyway, Bloodbath, I have 3 of the albums on CD. On wax, I have Resurrection Through Carnage, The Fabulous Mastery, and the most recent album. The only album by them I don't own in any format is The Arrow of Satan's Draw, which is probably my least favorite. It's still good, but it's not great. Oh, I also have the Unblessed and the Purity 10-inch too, but anyway. Their first EP from 2000, I believe, Breeding Death. I mean, the song Breeding Death is definitely one of their best songs. And back in this lineup, they had, what was it? Yeah, you got Dan Swano, Anders Norton, Michael Ackerfeld, and Jonas Rensky. So, half of Canatonia plus Opeth and Edge of Sanity. So, that's a pretty good lineup. Oh, Diabolical Masquerade too, because of Blackheim, obviously. But, oh well, you know what I mean. Cool painting. Definitely one of the best artworks too. I love their logo, even though they stole it from Gourmet, but honestly, a big what if from Bloodbath. I wish they did like one release that had Dan Swano on vocals, because he's, I think, one of the best death metal singers. So kind of a lost opportunity to not have him do vocals. But on this album, he played drums, interestingly. So I thought he did guitar, but nope, he was the drummer, which is pretty cool. And then here's the CD. This is a piece of, it says original from 2000, but I don't know about that. Yep, Bloodbath, Breeding Death. Listen to the title track, it's easily one of their best songs, and Ominous Blood Vomit. So there's only 3 songs on here. You got the title track, Ominous Blood Vomit, and Furnace Funeral, and then you have 2 demo songs. Yep. Bloodbath with Breeding Death. Skipping the debut, like I said, I have that one on wax. And then my favorite, which was honestly, I believe this was the very first Swedish death metal album I ever heard, not counting Amon Amarth. So it was either like Twilight of the Thunder Gods or this. Probably this one second, but anyway. So this is 2008 is when this one came out. I was 10, so not then, obviously, but years later. So yeah. This one you have a lineup change. Michael Ackerfeld is in, and of course you have Peter Tagrin, which you all know I love Hypocrisy, so that's also probably why this is my favorite, because anything involving him is going to be up my alley. Except Catch-22, but we don't talk about that. But yeah, and they had a different drummer on this one. They had Martin Axelrod from Opeth, and then Dan Swano switched to guitars too, so that's another important lineup change. But you still have Blackheim and Jonas Rinsk. I know this album is known for the song Eden, which is definitely one of their best songs. My favorite is probably Year of the Cadaver Race, or Soul Evisceration, or Grave New Hell. But this whole album is awesome, so definitely the best in my opinion, but they don't have a bad album, so anyway, yep. This is a Century Media pressing from 2008, which is when this came out. And then, skipping the Fabulous Mastery, like I said, I have that one on wax. We have Grand Morbid Funeral. So, Ackerfeld came back for Grand Fabulous Mastery and the EP. He left again, and then we have Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost. And then Dan Swano also left too, so 2 important figures of the Bloodbath camp left, which is a shame. This record's good, but honestly, I don't love Nick's vocals on here, which I get why they're not as great as they would be later in Bloodbath, because in Paradise Lost he hadn't been using gutturals for a while, so he hadn't gotten back to doing that yet, because that wasn't until 2015 when the Plague Within came out is when he started using death vocals again, and this was 2014. It's only a year before, but oh well. You can tell there's a big difference though. He definitely got stronger as a singer later on. So there's old Nicky Boy in the center. Yep, so it's basically the same lineup as earlier, just without, well, you still have acts, let me see. You have different, let me see. Never mind, I was just saying. Same lineup as Nightmare, except without Dan Swano and Peter Tagrin. So 2 guys left and they got replaced. Same drummer though, and same 2 guitars, so anyway. Yep. Bloodbath, Grand Morbid Funeral, good album, but not their best with Nick. I think their best album with Nick is definitely the most recent one. He sounds awesome on that album. So there's Bloodbath for you. I need to get The Heir of Satan is Drawn. Like I said, it's my least favorite. It's still good, but not their best. Alrighty, so next up we have a band I think is criminally under-talked about in the modern death metal scene. I have 2 of their albums, but they're definitely one of my favorite newer bands. I don't think get the attention they nearly deserve. This is Bodyfarm. So this is my favorite album by them. This came out in 2013. This is their 2nd album, I believe. So if I did not mention, they are from the Netherlands. Compare them to something, I would say like Vomitory, Blood Red Throne, a little bit of early Gorefest, a little bit of early Bolt Thrower, like the faster era Bolt Thrower, so like War Master. Not sure why they don't get the attention they deserve, but considering the amount of bands there are in the scene, I kind of get why though, to be fair. You can't hear everything, but yep. And this is The Coming Scourge, if I did not say the album title. So if you want to check out Bodyfarm, this is definitely the one I recommend, but all their albums are awesome, so give that one a whirl. So that is The Coming Scourge from 2013, put out through Psychon Empire. And then they also did this one, it was just 2012, so this one came first, so my bad. But anyway, this is Malevolence. Oops, I can't fall apart, but let me show you the insert, or booklet, I mean. Not a good, not, the other one definitely has better artwork though. I don't really like the art for this album as much, but oh well. So yeah, man, Bodyfarm were awesome, and they definitely deserve some more attention. Again, if you like stuff like Vomitory, Blood Red Throne, early Bolt Thrower, they're definitely a awesome band to check out, so give them a listen. That is Bodyfarm. Next up we got 2 Floridian death metal classics, both by the same band. So I have the first 2 albums from Brutality. Screams of Anguish from 1993. I would say this is generally regarded as a death metal classic, but I still don't think it gets the attention of like your Deicides, Obituaries, Malevolent Creation, Death, stuff like that. It's definitely on the like slightly lower tier, but quality-wise, it's easily as good as any of those bands' classic material. And they definitely have like, one of the better vocalists in the scene too. I love the vocals on this album. That's easily one of my favorite parts is his vocals. There's these strapping young lads. Yes, Scott Regal, that's his name. Definitely one of the better underappreciated death metal singers. And I know for a period of time this album was pretty hard to find, so it's maybe why it got less attention than some of the bigger bands, because it being more difficult to get a copy of, but anyway. Screams of Anguish, definitely the best, but the first 2 are great though, but this is definitely, I would say, the classic. That being said, I think this record is underrated, because when people mention Brutality, it's usually Screams of Anguish, but I don't think this one gets the love it deserves. And this is When the Sky Turns Black. And this is from 1994, so only a year later. Put that through, well, this is a 2014 Disembodied Records reissue, so there's that. Here's the insert. Cool painting. And then you still have Scott on vocals, like I said, is one of the better underappreciated death metal singers in my opinion. So yeah, man, Brutality are awesome, especially these first two albums, but if you know your Floridian death metal, they're definitely one of the better bands from that scene from back in the day. So check it out, Brutality, When the Sky Turns Black. Alright, let's go to Greece for this next band, and then we're done with the Bees. Like I said, the Bees are definitely one of the smaller sections. So this guy's a labeled a black metal band. I don't really get why, but to me they're more of a death metal band, but that's just me. This is Burial Hordes with Ruins. This is the only album I have by them, and this is, I believe, one of the guitarists from Dead Congregation, so anything involved in that project I will definitely check out. And if you couldn't tell by this is a Transcendent Obscurity albums release, which they like to do these giant J cards. The only difference between this and DC is I would say this is slightly more blackened, but to me I think that being called a black metal band is overstating it. To me, it's definitely a death metal band with slight black metal influences. Yep, Burial Hordes, Ruin, doesn't come with any lyrics or anything, but oh well. Is this as good as Dead Congregation? No, but let's be fair. 99% death metal bands nowadays aren't as good as DC, but oh well. So check it out, Burial Hordes, Ruin. This was one of my favorite albums the year it came out. This was, I think, 2 years ago, 2024, 23, something along that line. But yep, check it out. Alright, let's end it with one of the big boys. So we're in the seas, so you know where this is going. I have 8 records by Cannibal Corpse, so I know I'm missing a bunch, but they're one of those bands where the material is not hard to find at all, so I don't exactly need to look hard to get more, but I have a few on wax too, but let's just go with what I got for now. So we have, they debut Eaten Back to Life, definitely one of my favorite albums by them. Probably like a top 3. I love the thrashy edge on this record, which they pretty much ditched after this album. It would have been cool to hear one more like this, but it makes sense why they ditched it, because they want to become straight up more death metal. But a lot of the band's debuts from back in the day, especially from like Florida and New York, had a thrashy edge to it, which I loved. I know the fan favorite on this one is Skull Full of Maggots. My favorite song here has always been Edible Autopsy. I forget which song, but I know one of these had guest vocals from Glenn Bedden from Deicide. I think that was, I'm not gonna, which one is it? Let's say. Yeah, he gets on Skull Full of Maggots. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to double check that. And this is a 2000 reissue, so I know people complain about the newer Cannibal Corpse logo. It's fine, but I don't really care either way, but yep. Good album, their debut from 1990, but I'm sure you all know that anyway. Obviously, these are all put out through Metal Blade, which they've been signed to Metal Blade their entire career. Then we have Butchered at Birth. Some great songs on here, but honestly, the guitar tone is pretty horrible. I mean, listen to the intro of Meat Hook Sodomy, that riff, it's like, ooh, that's pretty not good guitar tone-wise, but that's definitely my favorite song in here. Then you got Under the Rotten Flesh is another good one. Vomit with Soul, I think, is probably the most popular song, or the title track. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for showing this, because I know YouTube could be funny with some not PC album artworks. And this one is definitely, I would say, the most fucked up album artwork-wise. This came out in 1991, obviously, but I'm sure you all know that anyway. So yeah, Butchered are both their second album. And then Tomb of the Mutilated. Honestly, this is my least favorite of the Bones era. I'm not a huge fan of this album, honestly. It's good, but I think kind of overrated. And the production's kind of muddy sounding, especially the guitar tones, like, not great, but I mean, there's good moments on here. I like the first two songs a lot. Hammer Smash Face obviously is their biggest song, and then I Come Blood. The rest of the album, there's good moments, just kind of not as great songwriting as the first two or what was to come afterwards. Definitely the most infamous album, obviously, because Hammer Smash Face, like I said, is by far the most popular song. Which is a good song, but I think they have way better songs than Hammer Smash Face. Even though that guitar riff is, in the beginning, is definitely one of the best, like, opening death metal guitar riffs ever, which that's a fun one to play on guitar, too. And obviously, these early ones were all produced by Scott Burns and More Sound. Yep, Tomb of the Mutilated. Good album, I think, kind of overrated, and definitely my least favorite of the Bones material. And then, The Bleeding. My favorite Bones album, and arguably my favorite of the entire catalog. It's either this and Bloodthirst are my two favorites, but I've been spinning Bloodthirst more the last couple of years, so I'll give the nod to that one, but this is a close second. Though I will say, Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, that's probably my all-time favorite song by them. And you got Fucked with a Knife, obviously, Stripped, Raped, and Strangled, which is another fan favorite they play every show. She Was Asking For, The Pickaxe Murders, Return to Flesh, Force Fed and Broken Glass, The Bleeding, Spearmint and Homicide. I would say this is almost like the version of Once Upon the Cross by Deicide. What I mean by that is they kind of drop the brutality a little bit and focus more on, like, writing catchy, memorable songs, which some people don't like about this album or Once Upon the Cross, but I kind of appreciate that. Like, every song is, like, super memorable, you get stuck in your head. I mean, it's the part of, what is it, the one part of Stripped, Raped, and Strangled. The simple chugging part, but you always have that song stuck in your head after you listen to that song. Or that riff, I mean. Yep, The Bleeding. Definitely my favorite by Bones, and arguably my favorite album by them in general. Then let's skip a whole section of their catalog, go into Evisceration Plague. So from 1994 to 2009, on vinyl I have Vile, Bloodthirst, and Kill, I believe. So there's a good chunk I'm missing, but like I said, they're not exactly hard to find. It's not exactly a big priority to get work. I can get them pretty much anytime I want to. This seems to be kind of a divisive record. I'm not sure why. Some folks say it's like it's either like one of their best with Corpse Grinder or one of their worst. I don't know why it seems to be so divisive with folks, but honestly, I think the most underrated record is probably Gore Obsessed, but that's easily the most underrated in my opinion. Even though I don't own that one, but oh well. Yeah, whatever. So my favorite songs on here, probably the title track. Priest of Sodom is another good one. God damn it. They chose literally the worst font you could imagine. You can't even read what these songs say. I don't know whose design idea that was, so bravo. Skewered from Ear to Eye. Jesus, dude, I can't even read what that says. Evidence in the Furnace is another good one, but yep. So again, whoever came up with this font choice, horrible idea, can't even see what that says. And then we have A Skeletal Domain. Good album, not one of the best of their modern era, but that's just me. Obviously, this has the song Killer Become. Fire up the chainsaw. That's a fun song to sing along to. High Velocity Impact Splatter is another good one. The Murders Pack, Funeral Cremation. This is 2014, if I did not mention that. Again, obviously you put that through Metal Blade, who they've been signed to since the very beginning. I will say this definitely has one of their worst artworks though. I mean, it's kind of cool, but for them, pretty tame looking. Although, honestly, they haven't had a good artwork in years, in my opinion. A lot of the artworks are kind of just whatever, not as gory and crazy as they used to be. Ship, there we have the Skeletal Domain 2014. I don't have Red Before Black. Then we'll go into Violence Unimagined. Definitely one of the better artworks of the modern era. Good to go back to being gruesome, which this one sucks, so I'm glad I was able to copy with the way better artwork. This is probably my favorite album that they've done in the 2010s to present day, so definitely the strongest material in the modern era, in my opinion. But like I said, at a certain point, they've kind of like gone in a cycle, like rinse repeat every 3 years. They put out another album, but not bad, but definitely a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yep, Violence Unimagined. And then their most recent album, this is Chaos Horrific. Definitely one of their worst album artworks, though I will say that. I don't really like that much. And then the back, kind of like a, I guess you could say, homage to Eat Back to Life, sort of. But this could have been a cool idea if it was done better, but I don't think that's a very good concept. It's kind of lame looking. Like the painting is just super muted looking. Let me show you the insert, or the middle rather. This came out in 2023, so I'm assuming we're going to get a new one this year or next year, but anyway. See up this Cannibal Corpse. Alrighty, we are done. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you found some cool new shit, and hopefully you enjoyed the background tunes. Yep, so let's do this again. I'll pull out some more and we'll talk about this. So, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.